Awesome. Good morning, everybody. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. Rise and shine. Wish I had my rooster video that I posted, catching the rooster right in the morning doing the cockle-doodle-doo. This is Claude Winston from All In Society. I'm here with Yaser Al-Keliddar. He is a World Series Poker Bracelet winner, a World Series of Poker Circuit Ring winner as well, which we haven't dove into that yet. But we did have a little bit of some technical difficulties. I'm learning this new software called Ecamm, and right in the middle, it cut us off. So now we have all the tools that we need to move forward and have a productive interview. So we're diving into his World Series of Poker victory, bracelet event victory in 2018. Yasir was sharing how kind of grueling it is to play these long form tournaments, especially against some of the best players in the world. But Yasir, tell me this: what was it? If this was a no limit event, do you think it would have been more stressful than playing limit hold'em?
Uh, I think it would have been a pretty similar amounts of stress,
Okay.
but I felt more in control. I think it being a limit tournament because I was playing a lot of limit hold'em at the time, and I hadn't really had a great. I was pretty confident in my limit hold'em skills, whereas I was not at the time. I wasn't as confident in my no limit hold'em game.
Okay.
Although now it's kind of the opposite.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I felt more comfortable just because I was very familiar with the game, and it was the game I first started playing when I first got into poker way back in 2002.
Okay. Well, let's transition to that. So tell us about your origin story. How did you learn about the game of poker? And if there was one person that was integral at getting you to play the level of poker that you are playing now, can you touch on that?
Yeah, I first played poker with friends when I was like 12 or 13. It was very like informal, and that was way before the poker boom. It must
Mhm.
have been like early or mid 90s. Um, and we were just playing like for coins, I think. And then didn't really play again until college, I think, with my roommates. Uh, and it wasn't really about the poker. It was just about like the camaraderie of hanging out and watching football and playing cards.
Okay.
And that was just a fun time. We only buy in for like $10 or $20, and I think I was the worst one, but I just enjoyed like the social aspect of it and the strategy. Although I didn't really know any of the strategy, but that was like my kind of like my first exposure to it. And then when I was a junior or senior in college, I watched Rounders, and that got me interested in like the casino setting of poker.
Right.
Although I wasn't 21 yet, but then the summer after college, I drove to Atlantic City and I played poker at the Taj Mahal. Yeah,
And what was that experience like?
it was a pretty strange experience because that trip got off to an ominous start. I was driving up to Atlantic City right after I had a job interview in DC,
Okay.
which was eventually going to be my first job out of college. I drove up to AC and I was having all kinds of car trouble on my way up there, but I pressed on because I was just so interested in going to experience something. I was kind of bored, like in my post college life, because my friends weren't all around anymore.
Okay.
And I just pressed on and eventually got to the Trump Plaza, and I valeted my car like a big shot. And then I was there to play blackjack because I'd had some success playing blackjack in the Bahamas on spring break a few months earlier.
Okay.
I won like $400, which felt like a ton of money to like a broke 21-year old. And but that blackjack experience was pretty bad at the Atlantic City. I lost like $900 in the first 20 minutes, and I was devastated. In retrospect, it was like the greatest thing that's happened to me gambling wise, or one of the greatest, because it taught me to stay out of the pit.
Yes.
I learned that at an early age, and so when I went to I wanted to leave the same day because I was just like so sick of being there and losing that amount of money. But when
Right.
I tried to get my car out of the valet, they said, "Sir, your car won't start." I was like, "Oh boy!" And I had to get my car looked at a place in town. And while that was happening, I decided to explore AC some more. And I still had a little bit of cash on me, and I I ventured over to the Taj Mahal to the poker room, which I had seen in Rounders, and I was enamored by the place and the idea of it. So I decided to go check it out for myself, and I played some low stakes games. I think I played like 2-4 and 3-6 limit hold'em, and I didn't know anything about the mechanics of like real poker. Like I was doing string raises and not looking at my cards properly. And I remember asking the older guy next to me, like, what's the biggest game they have here? And I think he said, well, we have 300, 600 limits sometimes, but I don't think you're quite ready for that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I remember playing 5-10 limit and 10-20 limit. And
Mhm.
I remember winning a pot at 10-20 with a nut flush. And I remember thinking like, oh, these guys, I feel like they were all like really good players. They were just letting me win a pot here and there to keep me interested.
Okay.
But looking back, they were probably pretty close to as terrible as I was.
Oh, that's funny. Um, so you mentioned a job um, and kind of finding your way through college. Tell me about your college experience and what was your major? What were your dreams and aspirations in life?
Yeah, I started college pretty. I didn't turn 18 till like the middle of my freshman year, so I was younger than most people there
Okay.
or at my grade level. My college experience, I was really looking forward to it because it's kind of like just a chance to start over from who you were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to James Madison University in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, in Harrisonburg, and I liked that aspect of it also. That it was very isolated. It was just like a
Okay.
bunch of college kids doing their thing. Because I grew up right outside DC, so I was already like very used to like the idea of big city life, and I
Right.
wanted to go experience something different.
Okay.
And Harrisonburg at the time was like 30 or 40,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in the Shenandoah Valley, and 2 hours from from DC and 2 hours from Richmond, and I got it placed into a dorm that had it was one of the I think the biggest dorm on campus. It was 8 floors and five of those floors were girls, and
Mm-hmm.
I was very interested in I was intrigued by that, and just a chance to meet all these new people. And freshman year I ran for hall council president, which I'm not really sure why. I think it was just like a way to meet a bunch of people again. And I won that election, which was fun. But then actually having that title was not as much fun as I was hoping it would
Okay.
be. But it was a way to be involved in an extracurricular activity. I played a lot of intramural sports and made a lot of friends, and it was pretty cool. I majored in political science because I had thoughts of going to law school
Yes.
after college, which I did. Although I didn't start law school until I was 27 years old. But political science is kind of like the go-to major for prospective law students because it's kind of easy to get a good GPA at poli sci.
Okay.
And yeah, I lived on campus for my first 2 years. Then I lived in an apartment with friends
Okay.
the last 2 years, and I'm still close friends with two of those roommates, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then transitioning out of college, did you find poker and that kind of became your professional career? Kind of was put on the back burner, or did you kind of mingle with both of them along the same time?
Yeah, I was kind of living a double life in
Mm-hmm.
some ways because I was playing a lot of online poker, like on Party Poker and Poker Stars, and
Okay.
I had various jobs in the legal profession before law school, and but none of which were like going to be a long term job, I don't think. And I also
Okay.
worked in sales of office ergonomic office furniture, and well, actually, a story about that. When I was 23 years old, I won a seat into the World Series of Poker main event back in '04, and I'm pretty sure that my job at the time was not going to allow me to leave
Okay.
for like potentially 2 weeks because or I think maybe then it was like 2 weeks because it was a sales job, so you can't easily just take 2 weeks off,
All right.
especially on short notice. So I sort of had to make a decision, and I decided like I want to get more into poker. I don't think this sales job is my career anyway. But I was playing a lot of online poker. I won a tournament on Party Poker, I think in October of '04 for like $7,000. It was $109 buy-in. I remember pretty well. It was on a Saturday afternoon. I was playing in my bedroom, and I had a dry erase board. When I got to the final table, I wrote all the prizes up on the dry erase board, and I would erase them as people got eliminated, so I could
Yeah.
see what else I was playing for. And then winning that, I think it was exactly $7,020, and that was like a high point early on
Hmm.
in poker, and yeah, that was a good feeling. And then I the next year I cashed in the main event of the World Series, which was my only time cashing in the main event. I think I played it 7 times, and those are also good memories. That was back when you got 10,000 chips to play in the main event.
Okay.
And I remember ending day one with less than I started with, and then I was just playing very timidly, and
Okay.
I told myself that on day two, I'm just like, if I get eliminated, I'm going to go down swinging, and I
Right.
really ramped up the aggression. I was raising and re-raising a lot of pots, and I remember an older guy at the table saying to his neighbor, he's like, "Man, I can't get any kind of read on this kid at all," which felt like great to hear.
Yes.
I was raising pots out, and I would just like put my head sort of down, like looking at the felt, and they couldn't
Hmm.
really like look at my face easily.
Right.
And I, was just like kind of running over the table for a little bit, and then I got my first real confrontation where I raised with a pair of queens, and this is like maybe like the first real hand I had raised. And this lady named Rowena re-raised all in, and it was all of my chips to call her, and it was a pretty big pot. And I was like, I feel like queens is just too good to fold, but I was, but she was playing pretty tight, so I was pretty apprehensive about calling her with a pair of queens. She had ace king, so I was like a 57% favorite.
Right.
And I remember standing up in the one seat to watch the run out, and she flopped two pair, and the turn was like a three, and then the river was magically a queen. And I remember yelling yes, and I did a fist pump, and I nearly elbowed the dealer in the face. And I remember just being so excited. I remember telling the dealer, like, when he was counting down my chips, I remember saying, just make sure I get all the right amount. And
Right.
he understood. I wouldn't say that these days because the dealers, they know what they're doing. But I was just so
Depends on where
excited.
you are.
What was that?
Depends on what event you're playing, especially you're talking about the World Series of Poker.
Yeah. But I think I just assumed that all the dealers were very good and knew what they were doing. And the dealer, like, he understood that I was just very excited
Mhm.
about winning this big pot and doubling my chips, like the second level of day two.
Right.
Yeah. And then I started day three. I had Greg Raymer on my table, who was the eventual winner that
Wow,
year.
you play with Raymer, huh? Okay.
Yeah. And Eli Lesra was on my direct
Oh,
left. And
oh,
I think that was like, I didn't really know who he was, but later I would learn that he was kind of like a poker luminary.
was he aggressive?
I don't really remember, but I remember that he and Raymer played a pot where they played it to the river and they chopped it because they both had king queen, which was
Okay.
top pair. And I remember like marveling at their post flop skills because my game was like all about pre flop poker. I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing post flop,
Okay.
Um, and actually that was that this whole tournament was a few months before I won that party poker tournament. But
Mhm.
and then I remember Eli Lesra was telling me that he was like amazed that I was only 23 years old and was on day three of the main event, and I was like, yeah, I guess it's pretty cool. And then the table broke, and I got moved to the table where I would eventually make the money, and that was a great feeling. I remember clapping when they announced it, and then after that, none other than Doyle Brunson got moved to my table, and he was two to my left. And I remember, there's cameras around the table because he was the godfather of poker.
Right.
And I remember I raised a pot with a 10-9 offsuit, and Doyle Brunson re-raised me. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, this is an easy fold. But I looked around a bit and I saw I looked to my right, and there was a camera like right in my face, but it was looking at Doyle.
Right.
And I was thinking like, what the hell is going on here? I'm 23 years old. I just got re-raised in the main event by Doyle Brunson, and there's a camera right here in my face.
Right.
Like, I feel like I might be in over my head a little bit or outclassed. But you sort of don't want to have those thoughts of ever being outclassed. But at the same time, I feel like one of my strengths is taking account of the situation, like who I'm playing against. I used to play
Right.
in a home game in Centerville, Virginia. That's kind of where I cut my teeth in live poker. I was
Okay.
playing 3 times a week from '02 to '04, and
Home
when
game.
it gets yeah, home game.
Okay. Okay.
And when it gets me late in the night, I would look around at the other players and I was like, "Are these guys really good? Am I outclassed? Should I leave?" I was always like evaluating my opponents, and if I felt like I was like one of the worst players, then I would, just call it a night.
Right.
And that was, an important thing to do.
Mhm.
But then I also learned that after about 6 months of playing there, I was maybe like top three in players there out of like a pretty big player pool.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but it is important, I think, to always see how you stack up to the competition you're playing against, both in a cash game and in a tournament. The difference being in a cash game, you can just quit if you feel like you're outclassed, and in a
Right.
tournament, you can't do that.
Right. Now, in the games that you typically play, there's probably not. We'll talk about cash games right now. There's typically, how often do you play 2-5? I guess if you're gonna play Hold'em at MGM, we'll say.
Um, I don't play. I haven't played much 2-5 at all lately,
Right.
and not much at all since in the past 2 years. I don't think.
Right.
I just
So, okay.
been so focused on tournaments.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So, but the times I guess I did see you playing cash, you're more than likely just going to be playing, I guess 5-10 then, where you don't have the opportunity to kind of transfer tables if there's an easier game or something like that. When there's just a must move game, you have to move to the next table. So, essentially, what I'm asking, game selection is kind of key, knowing your opponents and making a strategic decision whether or not this game is worth you staying in or not.
Yeah, game selection is very important, and that's a skill I think I have. One of my friends tells me that he thinks it's my best skill is I'm always playing in lineups that I feel like I'm a solid winner in.
Okay.
That's why I've only played 5-10, I think, like a handful of times in the past year or so, because
Mm-hmm.
every time I look over at the 5-10 game, it doesn't look like it's a great money making opportunity.
Okay.
It seems like it's a lot, got a lot of regs. Um, and it's maybe there's like one or two people you can make money from, and I feel like those people are often short stacking anyway. Like a
Okay.
lot of the pros, including myself, buy in for the max $2,500, but then the people who are the weaker players maybe only have like $1,000 or $600, so like you can't really win that much from them. And on
Okay.
and beyond that, when I look over there, it just doesn't look like they're having much fun. Like there's
Mm.
not a lot of the regs in that game. The professionals, they don't really do much chatter or much
Okay.
talking. And even though I'm playing for money, I want to enjoy myself also. And if I'm not having a good time, I'm less likely to play in that game.
Right. Right. Makes sense. All right. So the for the tournament side, how do you? Because I'm sure you use game selection as well. So what tournaments do you decide to play, and what tournaments don't you decide to play, and how do you differentiate?
I like playing pretty much all tournaments that have a buy-in of like 2,200 and lower. I
Okay.
think. Well, I shouldn't say all tournaments because I'm not going to play like a $300 daily tournament at MGM where the guarantee is like $10,000.
Right.
But
Is it more so because the rake is high, or there's not enough money in the pot for you to wait? I guess it's not worth your time.
yeah, I mean, time is money, as they say,
Mhm.
and competing for like a smaller prize pool just doesn't really interest me.
Right.
And yeah, the rake is pretty high.
Mhm.
I I don't doubt that I would be one of the best players in those daily fields,
Right.
but I just don't know if it's a good use of my time. Um, but when they have like a big series and they are running a like a $400 tournament, and I know the prize pool is going to be pretty big because of
Right.
the guarantee is really big. That's something I'll play, and for bigger tournaments, like I played the $10,000 main event at the
Hmm.
World Series every year for the past like 6 years, I think, and I played the $10,000 event at the Win in December, and those are a lot of fun, and it's kind of an intimidating. It can be an intimidating sum of money to buy in for $10,000, but there's a lot of recreational players at those buy-ins
Right.
also,
Right.
and a lot of satellite winners. So I played the Win 10K, which is the WPT Championship in
Hmm.
December, and I felt pretty confident about that. And I didn't make the money, but I got all my money in pretty good with jacks against ace jack, and I would have had like 45 big blinds if my jacks won, but that's just how it goes.
Right, right. What was the experience like between the Wins 10K and the World Series of Pokers? Which series, which event had the best experience for a poker player, would you say?
Well, the World Series of Poker is very romanticized.
Hmm.
It's got the allure of it used to be on ESPN, so you could potentially be like a household name for a few days if you made a deep run. And I think now it's on CBS Sports Network, and it's also streamed on Poker Go.
Right.
So if you make a deep run, you can message everyone and tell them to tune in, and they'll see you, and that would be very cool. So so the World Series is very cool in that sense. That's like the holy grail. Everybody wants to win the main event. It's the tournament you look forward to all year. And then the win is first class everything. It's just a very enjoyable place to play. Their staff is top notch. Dealers are fantastic. The aesthetics of the place are outmatched. I
Right.
mean are unmatched.
Right.
So yeah, they're both like great places to play for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you interested in going to the Bahamas for that World Series of Poker Paradise event or series that they just released?
It sounds interesting, but I'm going to be at going back to the win.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think you have to decide between the two,
Right.
and I'm going to go back to the win because that's like just my favorite place to play poker. I love the weather in Vegas in December.
Hmm.
You know, when you're there every summer for the World Series, you're walking on the strip in 110 degrees, but in December it'll be about mid 50s, and that'll be just like such a nice change from what I'm used to when I go to Vegas.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Ooh.
so I'm looking forward to that, and that's also right around my birthday, so I think it'd be like fun to be in Vegas for my birthday.
Absolutely. Oh, I have a great question. So when you go out to Vegas, especially for the summer, and we talked about this a little bit, when you go out there and you mean business. You go out there for a full schedule. So can you touch on how you build your schedule? And most importantly, do you choose to stay on property or do you do an Airbnb with other poker players and you guys can kind of share experiences and talk your game with one another?
Yeah, I've been to Vegas for the whole World Series in 2018, 2019, and 21, 22, and this year going for the full 6 weeks. Going all out. And I've always stayed at a house, like an Airbnb.
Hmm.
I think one of those times I stayed solo, just rented a room in someone's house, and the other times I rented a place with people.
Right.
And it's and those are been good experiences. As far as building my schedule, I don't exactly build a schedule. I have people always ask me like, "Oh, what are you going to play in Vegas?" And I always like groan at that question because I don't know how to answer it. I have a handful of tournaments in my head that I'm looking
Okay.
forward to playing, and those include the main event,
Hmm.
um, the Monster Stack at the World Series, the Millionaire Maker, and pretty much all the multi flights at the Win,
Okay.
and maybe some tournaments, a couple of tournaments at Venetian. And I'm big. I like those 1 day tournaments at the Win where the buy-in is $1,100 and the guarantee is 200K.
Right.
You could win like 80 or $90,000 in just 1 day,
Wow.
which I haven't done yet. The best I've finished in one of those dailies is in 2021. I took fourth place for $22,000, and that was like the first week there. So I got the trip off to a good start,
Right.
which was good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was going to ask a question. If so, basically, if you have to choose, the World Series of Poker is your go-to, your series that you look forward to the most. But and I'm sorry to ask this question. If you had to choose, regardless of where you live, which is easiest place to get to, MGM or Live, Maryland Live Casino, which place do you play for cash games and which place do you play for tournaments?
Well, I play at both of those places, but when I play cash, I'm usually going to MGM just because it's much closer for me. It's
Okay.
about live is about twice as far, maybe a little
Okay.
more than twice as
Mhm.
far. I think live has great tournaments, better tournaments, but at MGM they are doing a great job now that they've got Patrick running the tournaments, and he really cares and he's very good at his job, and he and I are friends, so I like to go support what he's doing there.
Great.
But then at Live, Chris McCall, who I'm also friends with, he does a great job running their tournaments. And uh, yeah, I like both places for tournaments. I think Live still has a slight edge in terms of field sizes and the uniqueness of the tournaments that they run.
Okay.
And also, they have like a set schedule every month, so you always know every Saturday which tournament is running.
Right.
And they have a monthly $1,100 tournament on I think the third Saturday of every month,
Hmm.
which is something I always block off that Saturday for. And haven't won it yet, but I took second place in September,
Okay.
and I've cashed various other times. But uh, yeah, I think MGM is great for cash games though. Uh, they always pretty much always have a 5-10 running. They have several 2-5 games. They have two or three 5 card Pot Limit Omaha games, and I know everybody there, so it just feels like home,
Right.
And so does Live, but more so MGM, I guess, because I'm there more frequently when I'm playing a lot of cash games.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, if there was one thing that both rooms could improve on, or just poker rooms in general can improve on, what would you do differently, or what would you like to see change for brick and mortar rooms?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that the staffing of places could use improvements sometimes.
Okay.
I think that both those properties have a lot of good floor people and dealers, but they also have some floor people and dealers who are maybe seem like they're not properly trained
Right.
and they don't know as many of the rules as I feel like they should.
Hmm.
Uh, but I don't know if much could be done about that because you always hear post pandemic people don't want to work, and
Yes. Yes.
and I think MGM could use better, more dealers. But if nobody really wants those jobs, then I don't know how they can fix that other than like maybe paying more money. But I don't think MGM is a big corporate entity. I don't think they're too interested in paying more. So,
Right.
um, I feel like there's been a lot of like mistakes that I've sort of been uh, victimized by lately,
Hmm.
which has been really unfortunate. Um, One story was in March. I was playing a 1 day tournament at Live. It was an $1,100 buy-in, and we were down to 8 people left at the final table, but only 7 people cashed.
Hmm.
And I was all in, and this lady called me, and then a couple more people folded, and then she gasped and exclaimed that her cards were gone, that the dealer had inadvertently mucked her hand. And the floor guy came over, and she whispered what her cards were, and he went through the muck and gave her cards back. And I really should have stood up for myself more and said, I don't, it's like she knows what her cards were. She whispered them. I should have been like, I don't care if she can tell you that there's a purple elephant stamped on each card. Like once
Right.
they're in the muck, her hand is gone.
Right.
Um, when she revealed her hand, it was King Eight suited, which I was amazed to see that she called me with that because I had Ace 10 suited, and it wasn't really a small amount that I was all in for.
Right.
But I wasn't a big favorite, and she won, and I was eliminated on the bubble.
Right.
Uh, I feel like and that floor guy, I don't think is good at his job or knows what he's doing,
Hmm.
and I should have told him like, you know, go get someone who knows what they're doing, and I want them to make a ruling on this, not you. And actually, that guy has made I feel like 2 bad rulings against me in the past 2 or 3 years. Yeah, so I think that both those properties can improve on staffing, but I don't know if they. I would like to see them improve on it, but I don't know if they really can. Another thing that really I feel like can be improved on is the dealers who feel like they're a part of the game too much.
Like
Um,
too social.
yeah, way too
Yeah,
social. Like
yeah,
they're chatting, like they just can't control it.
yeah.
Uh, I feel like they can't control themselves but to speak. And they're not. I feel like, I started playing poker back in '02, and I think back then it was more like dealers were there just to deal the game and not really be social with the players or be friends with the players. But I feel like that's kind of shifted.
Yes.
Uh, but and I don't think a lot of dealers realize, but when they speak, they can really affect the action because people get sort of wrapped up in conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of kills the action. They're playing fewer hands.
Right.
And, and I understand that it's kind of important for them to do that, to speak with the players because they form a rapport, which is good for their bottom line for tipping and cash games. But in tournaments, I wish they could like have that distinction of
Don't
how they're
speak
different.
unless you're spoken to.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's I feel like a lot of the dealers and the players obviously they need each other because if there were no dealers there'd be no games.
Right.
It's just a symbiotic relationship, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, and I feel like some dealers just don't have enough like respect for the game and the players that they're dealing to, and they don't care as much about the ethics of the game as they should or the game integrity.
Right. Right.
And I remember also in January I was playing a tournament at Live, and it was a $2,200 buy-in, I think, or no, actually it was August of last year, and we were playing at the final table, and the winner was getting more than $100,000, and there was a floor guy at Live who's kind of overseeing the table, and he was just like talking to the players while we're playing at this final table and telling stories about other players, things like that, and that really should never happen
Mm-hmm.
because again, it's and people are actually engaging him, and that's bad for action. I had to pull him aside and be like, I really wanted to be like, this is unacceptable. You got to get the hell out of here, or shut up, or not do that. But felt like I had to approach it more in a more diplomatic manner, and I explained to him, and he knew right away what I was talking about. I think because he's heard that from his peers many times that
Right.
you got to let people play, and you're just there to watch and make sure the game is running smoothly, and not make yourself a part of it.
Right. Right.
Uh, Yeah, another incident. I was playing at MGM shortly after the pandemic. I think when the plexiglass was still up, and I was all in. I think with ace king against kings, and I flopped the ace, and then the dealer dealt the river card in a dramatic fashion, like with a pause and a flourish, and then he revealed the river card to be the last king in the deck, and so I was eliminated. And I think on later on, I told that dealer, maybe not in the nicest terms. I was like, just deal the river normally. Like, we don't need to see that. We don't need the suspense. He's kind of like disrespecting the players by doing that. I felt like, like we're not here. Like I don't know if he's trying to make it fun for him, but like we're not here for him to have a good time.
Right.
And the dealers are guaranteed a paycheck every time they show up to work. They're getting an hourly rate plus the tips, right? But the players are not. A
Right.
lot of the players are losing more often than not, especially if it's tournaments, right?
Right.
So just like have some respect for that. And
Mm-hmm.
the dealer and I got into a little back and forth, a little bit of a shouting argument, and he wanted me like reprimanded or disciplined for what I said to him. But he no longer works at MGM, which I think is a good thing. Yeah, I feel like maybe the players and the dealers just need to have more respect for each other, and the players and the floor people. A lot of the staff, I feel like, doesn't even consider the fact that they're in a customer service industry. Um, Certainly, there's some floor people like yourself who do realize that, and they try to make the experience pleasant for the players. But a lot of the dealers and player and staff, the floor people, they feel like they're just doing us a favor by letting us play there. It's
Right.
kind of like I feel like that really happened at MGM when the place first opened. It like opened with kind of like a cocky attitude that they're this $1 billion property and they have access to a huge player base. It has the best geographic location of all the card rooms in the DC area. So they don't really need to like provide a great customer service. And, but and in a sense they were right because the players were coming out in droves when the place first opened. And I guess they still are. And I think it was just kind of like a mindset of maybe the people who opened the room, and I think that starts at the very top. I think maybe some messages were communicated by the top people, like we don't really need to do much here. Like the players will be coming out, and and the card room is going to make a lot of money for the casino. And it's kind of true, but I just don't think that in my opinion, that the the ideal person from a customer service standpoint to open that room wasn't chosen correctly, you know, and but it's a numbers business, and so I'm sure that person did maximize the profitability of the room.
Yeah. Well, I'll I'll say my give my input. Obviously, I was there in the trenches with the folks that opened the property. So I have relationships with these folks. I'm still part of the casino industry. So I'll just say a little bit of I'll keep it as PC as possible. But I believe the person that opened the room was the person to open the room and open a room and do it right based on their experience. Um, in opening an MGM property, but I think as far as executing on my comparison is always Aria. Aria to me is the greatest poker room, the greatest casino. That's my favorite casino. I think it's beautiful. I just love everything about it. But to have that experience, that Vegas experience here and locally in the DMV area, when you're hiring folks that have number one, they're not training the folks properly. I kind of you noticed that, and you kind of mentioned that. And number two, the folks that you're hiring, most of them are going to be local, have no clue of how to provide that service. So if they're not being trained that to provide that service, and then they don't know it from the jump, it's kind of you're doomed from the start. And there's a lot of things. We were kind of when we opened, it was very laid back and lax, and so the level of customer service is lacking because no one was kind of like there to say no, this is the standard. And so when you kind of start very loose, there's no way for you guys to kind of tighten up because when you do tighten up, you get into the situations that I got into. And I don't want to elaborate more than that. But Yeah, I think that was the issue, and you hit it on the nail. The location. They know those folks are going to be here. For every 5, 10 people you piss off, there's 20 to 100 more poker players that are going to come through the door.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think the most important part, and it's above the people that are in operations. Poker is a drop in the bucket. Table games and slots, and you know this, makes all the money. So in the grand scheme of things, as long as the wheels keeps running, they don't really care to really take this low hanging fruit stuff problems and really correct them and really change the culture. Unfortunately, the dealers are entitled. They make good money, and they think that some of them think that they deserve X amount of money just because you win X amount of money in a pot. Well, no, you have no idea how much money I've won this day or lost this day, or know how much money I've won and lost the entire my poker career, or if I'm a recreational player or a professional player. So for you to think that if just because I won $100 pot that you deserve a $5 tip or something like that, that's just not the right mindset. And unfortunately, the community is filled with those type of dealers and folks and supervisors. And then last point that I'll make on this, because I don't want to nail on this too much. In this area, you're not going to get a lot of folks that have a poker experience. Where now you're seeing, I'm sure you see this, you new supervisors, and they don't know a lick about poker. If you ask them to make a basic ruling, they couldn't do it,
Right.
and they're just being asked to do the bare minimum. Um, some of the dealers who are experienced would probably be best suited for supervisors, but there would be a pay cut for them. So why would they, take that pay cut? So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a battle that we're gonna have to deal with, but I'm glad I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. I think
But
there is. Yeah.
yeah,
So sorry, go on.
no, you're fine. You did mention online poker, so I did want to get into that a little bit more. Black Friday, and for those who are not experienced in poker and don't know what Black Friday is that You mentioned Poker Stars, Party Poker. What was it? Full Tilt Poker. I don't remember if ACR was open at that time. A couple of these poker rooms were opening, but they were not functioning properly, and so the government came in and pulled the plug. And some folks lost all their money that they had online, and it took a while for them to get that money back if they got it back at all. So, what was your experience like on Black Friday?
Yeah, I think Black Friday didn't really affect me that much because I think I was in law school at the time, and I wasn't really playing much online poker during those days,
Hmm.
and I didn't have any money on any of those sites.
Okay.
You know? So uh, I remember though I won the last ever tournament I played. I think it was like maybe like a week before Black Friday. I was playing like sparingly,
Okay.
and I won a tournament on full tilt like a week before Black Friday, and that was great. But it didn't really affect me directly. Uh, Maybe after law school, I would have been interested in getting back into online poker, uh, but it wasn't really it wasn't an option. So, but overall, it didn't have much of an impact on my life, and I was
Okay.
fortunate to not have like tens of thousands of dollars on those sites like some other people did.
Okay.
But I look back on those online. I used to play a lot of online poker from I think '02 until '08, and then a little bit in like from 2009 to 2011. And those were all good memories. I first started on Paradise Poker
Okay.
I think in 2002, and then yep, Party Poker had a lot of great high um, tournaments that were like buy-ins were like $162 on weeknights, and they had the Sunday tournament which was $215. I remember being pretty frustrated that I couldn't like have a breakthrough big score in those. And then I remember it well in March of 2006. I played the Sunday $250 tournament. I think it was the guarantee was like $500,000 maybe.
Okay.
Um, I made it all the way to the final table out of like a few thousand entries. And then right after I made it to the final table, Party Poker went down. Like the whole system crashed, and I was like, I can't believe it. And I was looking at 2+2 for updates
Hmm.
on when this would be coming back, and then magically, like almost an hour later, the site was back up, but the clock had been going the whole time, so everybody was blinded down at the final table. I feel like everyone had like around like 10 or 15 big blinds, and I remember two people were eliminated on the same hand, which laddered me up, and then I eventually got to three-handed, and we entered a chat room where you discuss making a deal, but we didn't come to an agreement. And then I was all in with Ace King, and I lost to Queen Jack. I was out in third place, but I won almost $41,000, which felt
Wow.
great. You know, and that was like my only. I think that was like my only online score of like more than like $12,000.
Hmm. Sure, that's a nice score. 41,000 online poker to me, it just seems so much more difficult. There's all this software and tools that you can use to beat the opponents and track your opponent's tendencies. And I mean, not to mention all the potential cheats and scammers that are out there,
Yeah,
bots,
yeah,
everything possible to beat you online poker. It's tough, man.
yeah. I don't recommend playing online really at all. The only online poker I play these days is in a mixed games private club on
Okay.
Poker Stars. It's
Okay.
Alan Kessler's club, and it's got mixed game tournaments every night of the week.
Okay.
And I don't think there's any cheating going on there. And if they are cheating, it's not really working out.
Okay.
No one's playing very well.
Right.
Uh, but that's a good way to like learn games other than Texas Hold'em.
Do you and Alan talk often? Are you like close?
No, we're not friends. We're friendly. Like I'll say hello to him when I see him at a tournament, but I barely know the guy.
Okay. So that's so funny because I wrote this down. So I've known Alan from my time that was dealing on the road. From him playing around tournaments, he's all over the place. You remind me a little bit of Alan for the fact that you want things done and done right. and you are vocal about it, you will come up to all of us, all the staff, and say, "Hey guys, this is the proper way to do this." But you're respectful about it. You're not, you're not calling anybody idiots or this, and that. You're definitely passionate. But if you speak up and say something's wrong, more than likely, like Yasser's right. He's telling you this is what the standard is. I think you guys should probably maybe look at this a different way. So I appreciate that. Some people don't necessarily appreciate Alan or someone like yourself who is kind of making sure things are done right. But I appreciate it. And even though sometimes I have to kind of take the L and say, all right, yeah, you're right, Yasser. Thank you for calling me out.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. I do try to be respectful and not talk down to anyone, but I am very opinionated about some things like how a tournament should be run or how a cash game list should be handled.
Right,
I've been around it for a long time, for more than 20 years now.
right.
So I know the inner workings. I feel like I know the inner workings of it pretty well.
Hmm.
And I feel like if something is being messed up and, that I want to speak up on behalf of the players. Um, but I can only imagine like when I talk to like 3 floor people about it and I walk away, like what's being said about me after that meeting. But I feel like, everyone's going to have an opinion
Yeah.
and, you can't worry about that too much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have two people. You're gonna have someone like we'll shout out Kyle, because Kyle's one of the good ones
Yeah.
left. Kyle
Yeah.
will say, you know what, Yasser has a point. He's right. And then you have some other ones like, bro, you make X amount of money. Like, just go sit down and play poker. It's not important. But that's not really the mentality to have, and that's probably the reason why they're in the position they are, and Kyle is in the position he is.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me of when I was playing. So when MGM, shortly after MGM opened, there was a 61-20 limit hold'em game going, and that's where I played a lot of poker, a lot of limit hold'em, and there were a lot of shenanigans going on with the list because the people who sort of organized the game, they wanted certain players
Right.
in the game, and they wanted it to be tougher for other good players to get in the game.
Yes.
So I had to. I spoke up about that several times, um, and sort of felt like I was banging my head against the wall, not really getting anywhere.
Mhm.
And then, and I wish I felt like I was like towing a line because you don't want to like get on the bad side of the room management where you could potentially be banned from the
Right.
room,
Right.
but you still want to stick up for yourself and your interests,
Right.
And there was a couple of action players where they they would have like a seat saved for them for hours and hours, and the
Mhm.
players who were already in the game would like put stacks of chips in that empty seat, so it would look like someone was there.
Right.
So every dealer who tapped in, wouldn't be able to call out to the floor, "Oh, we have an open seat here."
Right.
So that seat was just like saved for whenever that person felt like showing up.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm on the outside looking in for 2 or 3 hours before I can get in the game, and it's like, what do I care about making sure it's a good action game if I can't even play in it,
Right. Right.
And eventually, I figured out I had to be there pretty much at the start
Hmm.
uh, to be guaranteed a seat. And then I remember there's another incident where a guy who used to work at MGM as a floor then stopped working there and started playing in the game, and he was pulling some shenanigans also that I wish I'd spoke up more about, just like some unethical things that borderline cheating or maybe outright cheating
Right.
in the game. And um, one example of that was this player would get called on the river, table his hand, which was the winner, and then immediately he would turn his cards back face down and throw them in, so that the players all only got like a 1.5 second look at what his cards were, you know. And I don't know if it's an explicit rule, but that's not really the way it's supposed to be done. The player is not responsible, or the player should not be the one to turn their cards back over. That's up to the dealer to do. So like I feel like the hand should remain face up during the showdown while the pot is being pushed, while the board is being mucked, and then the cards also get turned face down. Because
Yeah. Okay.
poker is a game information. And it's very important to see showdowns because
Mhm.
that's one of the big clues you get as to how your opponents are playing. You
Right.
know.
So was it like, all right, so they placed a bet, the bet was called, showdown, the player tabled their hand, and then the dealer acknowledged their hand or verbally said what the hand was and declared them a winner. And did they like that person turn their hand and put it in the muck, or did they just turn it down face up, still right in front of them, so the dealer, if anybody asked, they could just simply turn it back over?
No, I think the way it happened was they would reveal their hand, they would table their hand, and as soon as their opponent mucked their hand, he would turn his cards back face down.
Okay,
So that because it was conscious, like he only wanted you to get a brief glimpse at his cards. Like
right,
the shorter amount of time his cards were exposed, the better. I'm sure that was his mindset, you
right,
know.
right,
And that's scummy, you know. And I really wish I'd spoken up and been like, you got to cut that out. Like
yeah,
that's not. And and I should have like called the floor over. But he was friends with all the floor people, so
mm,
that might not have gotten me anywhere, you know.
right, right. Yeah, I don't know. There's not anything that any specific rules are going to say that, yeah, he has to table his hand for X amount of time. And now, if he was turning it over, the dealer declared it a winner, and then he was immediately putting it in the muck. Then I'd be like, yeah, your hand needs to be tabled, and the dealer will muck your hand. But if he's tabled his hands, the dealer announced it as a winner, and then he just turns it over in front of him, and it's still there to if you wanted to see it, ask the dealer to turn it back over. I think they'll. I don't know if anyone's going to take the time and be like, no, you need to leave those cards face up. As
Mhm.
long as they're available for the dealer to turn back over for you to view, or if you want to ask him and if he's giving you a hard time or something like that, someone might be able to interject and be like, hey, you guys played a game. You won a pot. Anybody is at the table is able to see what your winning hand is. So I'm gonna need you to turn your hand over and not, respond in a disrespectful manner. Otherwise, you won't be able to play here. Um,
Right.
yeah, at least
Yeah.
to have that conversation. So I think that's by the minimum. Is all you're really asking for. Someone just acknowledge he's doing something kind of malicious or just causing friction unnecessarily. We're here to have a good time. Just play the game. If you want to, not cause any issues at all, just leave your hand turned over until the dealer bucks your hand and then moves on to the next hand. Um,
Right.
yeah, but yeah,
There were a lot of shenanigans in that game,
yeah,
uh, but those were with the manipulation of the list
hmm
and uh, and uh, and other things like that. There was one of the other professionals who kind of organized the game. He would show up at the start, and we would start the game like four-handed, and then he would leave the casino for like 2 or 3 hours
hmm.
and leave his chips there. And that was his way of guaranteeing that he had a seat when the game got really good, when the recreational.
Oh, oh,
And
okay.
I remember telling, going to the floor woman at the time, and this was in the old MGM room. And I was like, "Yeah, can you give me a clock on this on the two seat? Like, how long has this person been gone?" And then, she would tell me, she's like, "Oh yeah, we got to pick him up." And so she'd pick him up. That player came back in the room, and I saw him talking to her about it. And then I learned later that she said, "Yeah, oh yeah, Yaser wanted you clocked, so we picked you up."
Right,
And it's like, how on earth is it okay to mention my name there?
right.
And then I got like some backlash
Hmm.
from that player, and that's just like very, I feel like very unprofessional. Like that person, I felt like should be working in a diner somewhere if that's how she's gonna she's
Yeah, I mean, I can understand like these little subtle things that you would think someone in that role would be mindful of, but just sometimes they don't think about that, and that's not something that they're really training, to be quite honest. Or if they are saying it, it's saying it once months when they first start in their probationary period, and they're not really reiterating things like this. It's just
yeah
those little things that go unnoticed. They're just real small, simple things. Protect like privacy, common courtesy and decency, so you don't have to deal with things like that with whoever's organizing the game. And there's like simple things as someone smells at the table, and you let a floor person know, and you go back to the table and you tell the person, "Hey, Yasser said you smell at the table." Like, come on, man, that's not how it's supposed to go down. Keep
yeah
everything private and just address the matter that's the issue, not the. Don't you need to bring up the person? Just bring up the issue. Uh,
yeah. There's a lot of like common sense things like that, and
yeah.
also like when I'm playing a tournament at the Win, and there's a player right on the or an observer on the rail, and he's chatting nonstop with someone who's playing at the table, and
Mm.
that's very distracting and shouldn't really happen for more than like a minute or so, you know. And so I go tell the floor person. I don't think this happened at the Win actually. This happened at a local casino. The
Okay.
Win they have a lot more tact, but I go tell a floor person, and then like right away they like follow me back to the table, and they're like, and they say, yeah, you gotta leave. And now it's very obvious that I complained about this,
Right,
you know.
right, right,
I don't want to be the bad guy, you
right,
know. And if the floor is paying attention, they would come over and take care of it, on their own initiative. You know
right.
what I mean? So
100%.
stuff like that, can be very maddening. And I've seen a lot of floor people and dealers come and go in the DC area. I was playing a Borgata satellite at MGM, and the guy who used to run the room, he and I had like a 30-minute phone call about how to improve the tournament product, and he wanted me to like let him know anytime there was an issue.
Hmm.
So nobody was watching our tournament. There's no floor person overseeing it. So I texted him and told him that, and then the shift manager came out and started harassing me because I basically tattled on him to his boss.
Right,
We're playing three-handed at the satellite for 2 seats, and I'm being harassed by an employee. And he's like basically talking trash about me, and it's distracting and throwing me off.
right,
Luckily, I still won the seat, and I would have been very upset if I hadn't. And
right,
then he and I went into the office to speak about what happened, and I sort of regret not being more outspoken about that, like telling him that was complete BS, about what he just did, and
right,
that I should have told him like, you're very lucky I won the satellite, because if I didn't, I would certainly tell your boss about it and what I thought about the lack of professionalism with which you handled what
right,
just happened. You know?
right, right,
Yeah.
right. All right. I did want to ask you one more thing about your personal life off the poker table. Um, and we talked about this pregame. Uh, Adam Boone, the director of poker, and I just remember one day we were looking at Twitter. I think you probably won a tournament um, at MGM, one of the tournaments. And we were talking about your Twitter and just how sometimes you drop these gems and these funny comments. We were like, this is hilarious. I wonder if Yasser has any background in comedy. Well, come to find out, you do. So can you share a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I used to do stand-up comedy here in the DC area from 2012 till 2014. Uh, I did it mostly at Arlington Draft House in Arlington, Virginia,
Okay.
and it was a lot of fun. Just like I used to be I still am a big fan of stand-up comedy. I go to see a bunch of comedians every year. I went to two big comedy shows when I was in Vegas a few weeks ago,
Okay.
and I used to go to the Draft House a lot to watch comedy back in like 2011 and 2012, and some friends urged me to give it a try. I guess because they thought I had a pretty good sense of humor for that kind of thing. So I went to an open mic there on a Saturday night, and didn't do too well, but I rewrote and reworked some of the jokes, and I tried it again 2 weeks later, and it went much better. And I
Okay.
just kind of got hooked on it, the idea of making people laugh. And
Right.
when you're making someone laugh, you know that they're enjoying themselves, and I just like that feeling of um, people around me like enjoying themselves, or feeling good about themselves. So I did it, yeah, like maybe 30 or 40 times over the next 2 years, like at various bars around DC and Baltimore. And one of the best shows was at the State Theater in Falls Church. It was called $5 Comedy Night. It's like seven comedians for $5.
Mhm.
I think one of those shows we got more than 450 people there,
Wow.
which was great. And a lot of my like friends from college and high school and law school and other aspects of my life were there. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And in 2018, I opened for Screech of Saved by the Bell fame at a bar that my friend owns in Waldorf, Maryland. And I did that mostly for the story of being able to say I opened for Screech. May he rest in peace.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It was, and then I did a show in Vegas in 2019 off the Strip. It was a show organized by Joe Stapleton, and it was a charity show where all the proceeds went to the kids of Gavin Smith, who was a poker pro who passed away in 2019.
Hmm.
I think that's the last time I got on stage. I like to. People often ask me like, "Do you still do comedy?" And I like to joke. Well, I do. I feel like I do comedy every day, but I haven't been on a stage with a microphone in my hand
Okay.
since
Okay.
2019.
Okay. Who's your favorite comedian?
I think my favorite is Nate Bargatze, who's from Tennessee, and he's got some Netflix specials. And he's a very clean comic, although that's not really a requirement of mine. But he just tells a lot of like great stories. It's very dry, and yeah, I think I saw him in Vegas in June, and I also saw him here in DC in 2019. I think he's my absolute favorite, and then some of my other favorites are Chris Rock, who I saw last year
Okay.
here in DC. Nikki Glazer, who I've seen in Vegas twice. Um, yeah, Mark Norman. I saw him open for Amy Schumer in DC a long
Okay.
time ago. Uh, yeah, I think those are some of my favorites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there any comedy shows that you are looking forward to the end of this year that's in the area or that you would travel to go see?
Um, yeah, I think Nikki Glazer is doing a tour, even though I already saw her
Mhm.
last month or maybe in June. She's coming to, I think, Baltimore and Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. I think I might go to one of those.
Okay.
I think Nate Bargatze is also still touring, and I might go again. Although I think I've never seen a comedian twice in the same tour, and I think it's pretty much the same material. So I don't know if I would go again. I don't have any plans to see a comedian before the end of the year, but I might if I hear about someone touring like that. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe someone that I have never seen before. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So staying off the poker table, if you wanted to tie this into the poker table, I think we talked about some of your greatest accomplishments on the poker table. But what about off the poker table? What moments are you most proudest of?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think one of my proudest moments or achievements was graduating law school and then passing the Maryland bar exam.
Wow.
And that was pretty tough for me because I was never really a good at studying, you know. So it was just very tough for me to like sit down for hours and hours and read and memorize material, especially material that's often sometimes pretty dry.
Hmm.
Often, like the legal world often can be, you know. But I remember I was living in Baltimore with my girlfriend at the time, and I went online to see if I'd passed the bar exam and saw that I had, and that was like a very joyous occasion, you know, because it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. And she and I went out to dinner that night to celebrate. And studying for the bar exam was pretty tough because it's like 2 months of shutting your social life down.
Okay.
And for someone like me who has never really had the attention span needed to study for something like that, to prove to myself that I could do it was great. And then I guess another proud moment was, I practiced law for 6.5 years, and then I think making the decision to leave the legal profession because I was not enjoying it
Okay.
enough, and I feel like life is too short to do something you're not really enjoying. Even if the money is good,
Right.
just being able to make that decision and willing to, having the confidence to like bet on myself and
Right.
dive into poker full time. Um, I'm pretty proud of being able to make that decision because it is a very scary thing. Like you're really taking a leap of faith and you're betting on yourself. And, so far it's worked out pretty well. So I'm happy that I was able to make that kind of decision. I think those are the two big things I'm probably most proud of in my life.
Right. What was it like making that transition out of the legal world into poker? Were you in a relationship at the time? What do your friends and family, what did you share with them what your decision was? What were you planning to do? And you weren't really happy was studying law and you wanted to pursue poker more seriously?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was supportive, and she knew that I really enjoyed poker and was good at it. So I had support from her. I think my parents were a bit skeptical because I had just spent all this money on a law degree,
Hmm.
and had a pretty good job working for the federal government. But I just wasn't really enjoying it enough, and I felt like being able to control my own schedule was very important to me.
Hmm.
And it just like gives you a chance to like really be yourself. Whereas you're working in like corporate America or the federal government, you have to sort of play by rules that you don't necessarily agree with. But like I could just always be myself at the poker table. If I want to tell a joke that might be inappropriate in a conference room, in downtown DC, there's nothing really stopping me from doing something like that. And just the freedom. Like after I won the bracelet in 2018, I wanted to celebrate, so I went to Europe
Okay.
by myself for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And if I was still working for the government, I wouldn't have been afforded that luxury. But it was just something I felt like I needed to do. I felt like I needed to go see places I'd never been to before.
Right.
So that was like the right time to do it. And I've been wanting to go to like Eastern Europe and other parts of Europe for a while, but nobody could ever like take the time to go with me. So just decided to go by myself.
Right. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this is awesome. This is very eye-opening because a lot of the things that you're sharing, I've internalized myself. So it's awesome to because I don't think there's very many. Our lifestyle is very niche. There's not too many folks on this planet really understand the lifestyle that you live, and really put themselves in the position to win or lose money. But obviously, you've built out a strategy, a game plan, and you mentioned you you said you really didn't have. You're not a really big studier. But you've obviously studied enough of poker to become as successful as you are. So what are you studying? Or is it just friends, family, other poker players? How do you hone in and develop your game?
yeah. Well, I do a lot of chatting about poker with friends whose opinions I trust and respect, and
Yes.
I also use some study tools.
Okay.
Not so much in the past like few weeks, but um, yeah, there's a lot of software that can be used. There's solvers
Right.
that show you how to play GTO, which stands for Game Theory Optimal, and I have like a pretty decent grasp of that.
Okay.
Um, but then you also want to be able to play in an exploitative style. If you see your opponents are playing with certain tendencies, you want to be able to exploit those. If they're calling too much, you want to maybe value bet like second pair on the river, especially if you have a reputation of someone who's a very aggressive player. And I feel like that is my image or reputation at the table, that I am more aggressive than most. So when I have a hand that is not great, I might get paid off on it, whereas other people won't. You know, um, that those are my main study tools. I think are solvers and chatting with people, and I watch like instructional videos.
Okay.
And I feel like you can't ever feel like you're too good to study at poker because
Right.
there's always things to improve upon. And if your opponents are studying and you're not, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of other things where the people who work the hardest are the ones who are going to rise to the top.
Right. Is
Yeah.
there one specific player that you model your game on?
Uh, no, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Um, I guess I find some players. I feel like they play really well, and I find their style kind of inspirational or influential. But no, I don't think that there's a certain player. I mean, no, I don't think so. I think I've just kind of like developed a somewhat um, unique strategy of. I don't think it's unique at all. I think that I play GTO against the players who I think are also playing
Playing.
somewhat of a GTO
Okay.
strategy, and
Okay.
a lot of recreational players, I just play more. I think play more aggressively.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So you take it to the streets when you're at a table with folks who are not playing that um, GTO strategy. And for those folks, probably the high roller events or those bigger buy-in events that you're playing in the tournaments, when you know that they're playing pretty much by the book, you kind of stick to that and maybe deviate a little bit.
yeah. That's
Okay.
exactly right. And
Okay.
I feel like you really have to be willing to do that. I think you have to have a good understanding of GTO play. From pre-flop ranges all the way to making sure your river bets are balanced between bluffs and value bets.
Okay.
Um, you really don't want to be like known as a player who always has it,
Yeah.
because you just won't get action when you have a
Right.
big hand.
Right.
So, but if you have a reputation of someone who bluffs a lot, then when you do make a strong hand, you'll get paid off maybe where other people would not.
Right. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
That'll kind of lead into our we played that six max tournament on Sunday. I was lucky enough, probably the one time this year, and probably years in the past, that you and I both make the money that I maybe outpace you rather than the latter. So I'll take my little small second place victory this time, and hopefully we'll be able to battle in the future at MGM. But yeah, we did play at Maryland Live. There was a $400 event. Yeah, so you also cashed in the re-entry as well, correct?
No, no, I didn't make day two of the
Okay.
reentry.
Not the re-entry. But you did. Did you play any other events that series at Maryland Live?
No, no, just I
Okay.
think I played only that multi-flight and the
Okay.
six match.
Okay. Do you plan on playing the main event?
Uh, it's a little bit up in the air. I want a satellite into the main event. So, and for a while, I've been planning on playing it and buying in for 5,300, and now I can get in for $600.
Wow. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I guess I'm kind of just curious about what the field quality will be like,
Okay.
because I don't think it's going to be a huge field, and I don't know if that many recreational players in the area will be willing to drop $5,300 on that.
Right. Right.
Um, but I think I'm gonna go there on Saturday and then look around and then decide if I want to get in
Okay.
because I have the option to sell my seat to somebody.
Right. I know they've definitely been. Oh, I have a question on that after that. But I know they've been aggressively giving away satellite seats throughout this month and then the month before. So I think it'll probably be riddled with recreational players. But I agree with you. How many Recs are just jumping in with $5,000 buy-in? Not too many at all.
Right, and there's a main event at MGM the following weekend
Right.
with a $3,000 buy-in. I think
Mm.
that'll be the softer of the two
Okay.
tournaments.
Okay.
And if I feel like if anyone out there wants to play just one, I think I would recommend the MGM tournament.
Okay. Okay. Now you said the seat. What would you sell that seat for? And how do you break that down?
Yeah, so the seat is worth 5,300, and I got it for 600. I don't think I'm going to be selling it for less than 5,250 because
Okay. Okay.
I'll just sell it to someone who's in line to register right before the tournament begins.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and they can save $50 by buying it from me. And
Okay.
also, uh, I know a lot of the people there, so I feel like it'd just be like a very smooth transaction.
Okay. I didn't know if there would be someone to pretty much pay close to full price, even though that you only. All right. Okay. I didn't know if it would need to be like 4,000 or a little bit less than that for anyone to get a bite, but that's good. Okay, they'll save $50 and they'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um. Uh. One more question. Oh, we talked about solvers. Um. Have you dabbled at all in now this is kind of like off the rails in chat gpt the AI software?
Uh, no, I haven't.
Okay.
No,
I was
I haven't.
Okay, I was curious if you've used that tool and if you've used it for any of your poker strategy or anything like that. I know I've heard some of the guys that they use find creative ways to use that Chat GPT software. So definitely, I would say definitely look into it. Outside of poker, it's definitely helped me build out some things and make things more automated and get back a little bit more of my time.
Hmm.
Yep. Um, MGM, their tournament series. Now you said you're going to play the main event, the 3100, more a much better value tournament, and you think it'll be more recreational to play in that event. But what about you won the last series? You won the mystery bounty, correct?
No, in 2019
2019. Okay.
there was a no. I guess it was 2020. It was like a month before the pandemic. There was a
Okay.
PPO series. That was
Yes.
February 2020. I
Okay.
won the I won the opening event, but it was not a mystery bounty. It was just a regular tournament.
It wasn't I swear there was something that you won MGM that said bounty in it.
Uh, Not that I can recall. I won a mystery bounty at Live last year, right before the World Series.
Okay, maybe that's what it was at live. I was thinking that you won. Well, with that being said, what's your experience like, or what strategy do you take when playing bounty events? And we'll lead into the MGM's bounty. Do you play just super aggressive and you want to get as many bounties as possible? Or are you playing your standard? I just want to play for the prize pool. If I knock you out, I knock you out.
Yeah, I don't play. I don't think I play any more aggressively than I do in a regular tournament.
Okay,
Um, you know, uh, Mystery bounties are interesting in that you don't know. Obviously, you don't know what the bounty is going to be, uh, but you you sort of like want to adjust your pot odds with the idea of the bounty in play.
hmm,
I think you want to be like calculating what the average bounty remaining is,
okay,
and then you're going to want to like call when the big bounties are still available. You might want to call a little bit wider.
right,
Uh, but if you know that the biggest bounties have already been pulled, then you're not too excited about playing for the bounties. But and then I think that also as you get closer to the money, both in regular bounty tournaments and mystery bounty tournaments, you don't want to be thinking too much about the bounties. You want to be more focused on the prize pool
right,
because that's really like where the guaranteed money is in the prize pool.
hmm,
You know? And I feel like even like with two tables left in a regular bounty tournament, people are still like playing for the bounty, but there's a lot more money to be won if you just win the whole tournament.
right, okay, okay,
You want to mess up your chances of winning the tournament by just going after one or two bounties. You know what I
right,
mean?
right. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, well, great. Well, there you go, guys. If you're planning on playing the Mystery Bounty event, there's your strategy right there from Yasser himself. But so obviously you will be playing that $400 600K, correct?
Actually, no, I'm not too sure about that because it's the same weekend as the main
Oh, it
event at
does
live.
run. Okay, okay. They
So
overlap each
it's kind of like a wait and see thing for me.
other. Okay. All right.
Because I can buy into the main event at live on day two
Okay.
if it seems like they're falling short of the guarantee,
Hmm.
or if it doesn't seem like as tough of a field as I might be thinking. You know,
Okay. Okay.
so it's not easy to plan ahead for this weekend.
Right. And all right, so I believe the following weekend you have they have that 1500. Oh, actually, first, let me go back. Are you at all interested in playing that heads up tournament at Maryland Live? It's $1,100 buy-in, no guarantee.
I don't think I'm too interested in it. Um, I played the heads up tournament at MGM in 2020, and I think it's like a fun format, but I also think it's very tiring mentally because you're in every pot,
Right.
and um, I just don't know if I like am willing to like put forward that kind of stamina
Right.
which is needed to win that tournament. So I don't know if I'd be like a favorite in that field. I feel pretty good about my heads up skills.
Okay.
I don't even. That's an interesting idea. I don't even know when that tournament is. Can you tell me when it is?
I
You see?
believe it's today or tomorrow. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, I know they had the first round either today or tomorrow. I'm pretty fairly certain before I pull it up now it's going to be tomorrow because today they have that multi-flight event, which I'm sure they're going to need a lot of dealers for that.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I
So
don't.
the heads up is Wednesday at 1:15, rounds 1 through 3.
Oh, okay. I don't think I'll be playing it.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm playing any poker until this weekend, but we'll
Okay.
see.
Okay. All right. So yeah, going back to MGM's events, they have the high roller was a 3,500, and then they also have a $1,500 freeze out. Were you interested in either one of those?
Yeah, I'll probably be playing the 1500 freeze out.
Okay.
I think that's going to be a good tournament. It was a good one in February. It didn't go well for me, um, but I got my chips in as a pretty good favorite. But I got eliminated by Bin Wang, who's been on a real heater this whole year.
Yes.
Uh, that is a good tournament, and then I think I'll be playing the main event in the high roller. I do like playing up in that room, and I think that those will be a fun tournaments, fun time. Hopefully they're profitable, but
Right.
certainly no guarantee of that.
Right. Now you and I know that doesn't have a large guarantee, but have you ever played a tag team event?
I haven't. Actually, if I could backtrack for a second, I don't think the high roller will be a soft field.
Okay.
Uh, so I don't know if I'll be playing that one, but
Okay.
I'm looking forward to the freeze out and the main event. I've never played a tag team, but one of my friends keeps bugging me and telling me that we should play the tag team next week. But it's a little too gimmicky for me. The idea
Okay.
of poker being a team sport,
Yes.
but also the schedule works out. Not It's not great because it's the same day as the freeze out, and um, if I was going to play just one of those, I would play the freeze out. You know.
Right. Well, I guess you'd have to have a partner who you'd feel comfortable taking it to the final table and completing the tournament while you could play the freeze out.
Yeah, right. And my standards might be a little high, so it might be tough to find that person.
Yeah. Yeah. For that you believe would be better to finish a tournament than yourself.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. If someone like Darren, you named Ben, who are some local players? And this will be the kind of last question because I don't want to respect the time. You've definitely gave us more than enough time, so I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this in the future. We've also talked about some things in the past, or excuse me, off camera. So hopefully, we can bring those to fruition. But what players are you? I want to say that you fear, but what players do you feel are very accomplished? And when you look, we sit down and you're at the table too, you're like, oh, this is not going to be easy feat.
Uh, that's an interesting question. I think I sort of want to pass on this question though, because
Okay, all right, understood. All right, you
I
don't want to.
mean, I played against someone last night or 2 nights ago in the six max who was on my direct left. I don't know his name, but he was a very good player.
Okay,
But in general, I'm not too big of a fan of uh, if I'm confident that I'll never see the player again or that they don't play much anyway. I don't mind giving them a compliment and telling them like you played really well. And I told that guy when he got eliminated, I told him that I thought he played really well.
okay,
But in general, I'm not a big fan of giving players I see on a regular basis. I don't like to give them any more confidence than they might already have. You know.
okay,
Uh, yeah, I remember reading an article a long time ago about a final table. I think it had Eric Seidel and Daniel Negreanu and maybe one other player, maybe
okay.
Phil Hellmuth, and one of them like won another pot and or doubled through one of the others, and then won another pot. And that guy that he doubled through said, "Oh gosh, I've created a monster."
Uh-huh.
And of course, that's going to give that player more confidence at the final table. The last thing I want for my competition to have is confidence. I want them to feel like they're already beaten by the time they get there.
All
You
right,
know.
all right.
So conversely, when I sit down at a table and I often show up late to a tournament, and someone like makes a comment or rolls their eyes like, "Oh boy, I got to deal with you all day." That's very good for my confidence.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
the uh, the ego part of me loves loves that. You know, uh, and that's kind of like why I'm drawn to poker is because it's something I'm good at, and I think like humans in general, we're drawn to do things that we're good at, and where we have a reputation for being
Mm,
a good player at something, you're going to want to do it more and more, right?
right.
Um, so yeah, there are a lot of players that in the area that I respect, but overall, I don't want to disrespect the whole player pool of the DC Baltimore area, but I don't think there's that many really good tournament players around here.
I would agree. I agree. It's pretty soft, especially $1,000 or below events, because that's really what all I play. When you talk about $1,000 or more, I'll have to lean on you to tell me how those fields are.
Hmm.
Yeah, but you're kind of saying they're not necessarily the greatest players in this area, so something to be mindful of. Yasser, before we go, can you give us your greatest strength, if you like to share one of your greatest weaknesses on the table? And can you provide one tip for a new player, experienced player, or just anybody who's just interested in poker whatsoever? Just a tip to either learn how to master the game to the level that you're at, or just give them maybe an eye-opening point of view.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that my one of my greatest strengths applies to cash games. Is when I am losing in a cash game, I usually have no problem just calling it a day,
Hmm.
and I feel like that's made me and saved me a lot of money over the years. A lot of players have a mindset like, "Oh, I'm down, I got to get even, and then I'll think about quitting," you
Right.
know. But we all know the best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging,
Hmm.
But people don't think of it that way, and I think that there was a day in a 5-10 game a couple years ago. I was down $8,000, which was a lot for a 5-10 game, but I was like very comfortable just like leaving. It's a lot of money, and it's a
Right.
lot of money at those stakes, but it just wasn't my day. I wasn't playing my best, and so I was pretty cool with just leaving.
Right.
And the next day is a new day, right?
One big
Uh,
session.
yeah, and then I think another strength is being able to adjust to different opponents,
Okay.
just like by observation, by just watching what people are doing, and also not being so overconfident or cocky that I don't have anything to learn.
Okay.
Um, I often speak to players who I consider much much better than me, and I'll just really take their advice to heart, and that's why I've paid for coaching also.
Okay.
It's interesting because I get asked about coaching. Like people ask me if I will coach them, and I don't feel too comfortable about coaching someone, so I've passed on that. But I appreciate the requests, but uh, and I think I have respect for those people because they're trying to get better and they don't feel like they have it all figured out.
Okay.
Uh, and then for weaknesses, I really need to sometimes need to like put my phone down more, but I've played so much poker. I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I've played a lot of live poker,
Yeah.
and I know sort of like when I need to tune in and when I can afford to tune out.
Okay.
And I make sure to pay attention to the showdowns, or stuff, important moments like that. But then like during the pre-flop part, I could zone out sometimes. But I think it would be very beneficial to put my phone in my pocket and not be listening to music and watch very intently. And I admire the people who can do that.
Right.
Sometimes I am like when I go to when I'm driving to the casino, I'm like, what can I get better at today? That's often a thought that pops into my head is like putting my phone away and watching intently. The thing is, I think you get more tired because that means you're thinking critically even during pots that you're not involved in,
Okay.
and that's gonna be more mentally tiring. So it's sort of a trade off, I think.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh, I guess you asked me about like what advice I would give to someone to get into poker.
Right.
Take advantage of all the learning tools that are available now. I think back when I started playing live poker in 2002, it wasn't really we didn't really have the same kind of resources. It was pretty much all books,
Right.
and I don't really hear much about people learning through books these days. But there's a lot of coaching and training sites, and I would advise someone to get involved in using those.
Right. Do you have any anyone specifically or any sites or courses specifically that you would
Uh,
suggest?
yeah, I think for somewhat beginning and intermediate students, I think Faraz Jaka
Yes.
has a coaching site, and I think that's good. And I used to get coaching from him.
Okay.
And there's a coaching site called pokercoaching.com.
Okay.
You
Is
get
that
membership.
Jonathan Little?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I think that is good to a certain degree. And there's a ton of videos, instructional videos on runatonce.com.
Okay.
I've tried all those things, and they've all helped. But the best help I think I've received in recent years was I got coaching from a top level player, Brock Wilson, who I think is one of the best in the world. I think he's not even 30 years old yet, and his Hendon
Wow.
Mob is already over $6 million.
Wow.
And that coaching was not cheap, but I think it was really worth it.
Okay. Is he an online player or a live player?
I think he's pretty much exclusively a live player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So yeah, that's a the gem. I've never heard of the name or the player Brock Wilson before. So that's definitely something I'll tune into and check out. I know I'm a big proponent on Chance Corneth and the chip leader coaching. So I bought their software. I've definitely been slacking, but the little bit of the AI tool that they do have, it's very beneficial. I think I was able to apply it some of the tournaments I've played recently. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, you definitely gave us more than enough time today, Esther, an hour and a half, so plus. And so I do appreciate your time today. We'll definitely, hopefully, do this sometime in the future again. Hopefully, after your MGM series, you'll have a trophy to hoist up and to have a story to tell us after the series. So good luck in the series. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again.
All right. Well, thanks very much. It was a
All
fun
right.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
All right. You too. Bye.
Yep. Bye. All right, guys, that is going to be it. That was our first live interview. I know it's an hour and a half long, so I didn't really expect anybody to sit here and watch it for an hour and a half long, but it will be available on my YouTube page. It will be available on Facebook, and you can definitely check that out at your leisure. We will have more of these in the future, hopefully with Yaser. Some also with some other players may not be as accomplished as Yaser himself, but maybe we'll find some players before they win their bracelet, before they win their World Series of Poker circuit ring, before they win their trophies for any event, whether it's tournament or a big score in cash. We'll introduce people in the poker community. We'll even interview folks that are not in the poker community. My job is just to bring my knowledge of poker, and poker is a very easy game to learn. It's a worldwide game. So I want to use poker to bring us all together. Hopefully, we can learn something from one another and we can build together. So that's it for me. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Make sure you check in All in Society podcasts and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a wonderful day.